From WREL News and the Capital Broadcasting Podcast Network, this is your Coronavirus North Carolina News Brief for Monday, July 20th, 2020. I'm Cliff Baumgardner. Here's the latest from WREL.com. Today, North Carolina surpassed 100,000 positive cases of the novel coronavirus. To date, 101,289 positive tests have been reported since the first confirmed case in North Carolina in early March. As of today, the number of new cases is 1,286, down from recent daily reports of over 2,000 new cases. More than 1.4 million tests have been performed, the equivalent of about 10% of the North Carolina population, although not every test represents an individual. Some people, especially those on the front lines or with health conditions that present with symptoms similar to the coronavirus, have been tested more than once. Of the tests performed in North Carolina, about 9% have been positive. While most of those who test positive recover and show no symptoms at all, much is still unknown about the virus that causes the illness COVID-19. Also today, hospitals across the state reported more than 1,000 North Carolinians are being treated for the illness. As coronavirus numbers continue to climb, state officials and health experts are encouraging the public to do a few simple things to help curb the spread. Just follow the 3 W's. Wash your hands, wait 6 feet or more from others, and wear a face covering. To date, more than 1,600 people in North Carolina have died from COVID-19. Last Friday, the state announced North Carolina's jobless rate declined dramatically in June as restaurants, hotels, and retailers bounced back since Governor Roy Cooper's COVID-19 restrictions were eased. The state's seasonally adjusted unemployment rate fell from 12.8% in May to 7.6% in June, as the number of people on the job grew by more than 220,000. Cooper's stay-at-home orders in March brought most non-essential consumer commerce to a halt. Those restrictions prohibited dine-in services at restaurants statewide. The unemployment percentages are based on employment activity in mid-June, 3 weeks after Cooper lifted the order and allowed most businesses to reopen at partial capacity, including restaurants for in-person patrons. Personal service providers like hair and nail salons could also reopen. Bars, gyms, movie theaters, and entertainment venues are among the businesses that will remain closed until at least August 7th, as Cooper and his administration have said they constitute high-risk settings for coronavirus transmissions. The unemployment rate decline comes even as daily jobless benefit claims filed with the state still exceed the average weekly total received before the pandemic. More than 8,500 claims were filed last Thursday, according to the Division of Employment Security, bringing the total since mid-March to more than 1.94 million. Some public school districts, Durham, Orange County, and Chapel Hill-Carrboro among them, decided last week to keep school buildings shuttered for students when K-12 classes resume on August 17th. And last Tuesday, Cooper announced public schools could reopen their classrooms to students as long as face masks were worn and social distancing was practiced, but he left the door open for districts to offer only online remote learning for now. In a letter released Friday, Cooper asked the state's congressional delegation to back another federal coronavirus relief package that contains more money and flexibility for local and state governments to fill anticipated revenue shortfalls. And lastly, from WREL TechWire, ever since the U.S. government launched its emergency lending program for small businesses back in April, there have been complaints that bigger companies had their loans approved and disbursed more quickly. Now, there's evidence to back up those claims. The Federal Paycheck Protection Program made very low-interest loans available to any business or franchisee with under 500 employees. The loans would be forgiven if most of the money was used to keep employees on the payroll. The Paycheck Protection Program is a key part of the government's coronavirus relief plan. It's credited with supporting the job market when millions of workers have been laid off. The data released by the SBA on July 6th does show that by June 30th, 85% of the PPP loans had been for less than $150,000. Still, analysis from the Associated Press shows that early on, some of the nation's biggest banks were quickly approving loans for larger customers before ramping up their volume of smaller loans. Larger companies with connections to major national or regional banks got priority treatment in the program's initial phase, the data shows, while many smaller businesses said they were turned away because the banks required them to have a checking account, a credit card, and a previous loan to be considered. Some small businesses submitted an application but then heard nothing. Small restaurants, retailers, and other companies most in need were left waiting and unable to pay their employees, landlords, or vendors. Many learned not from their bank but via news reports that the initial $349 billion in funding had run out in less than 2 weeks. Although the evidence points to big loans going to the head of the line at banks, it's not clear what happened once applications entered the SBA system. The SBA did not respond to a request for comment. This has been your Coronavirus North Carolina News Brief for Monday, July 20th, 2020. If you like the information and resources you get from this show, let us know. Leave a rating and review wherever it is you listen. And while you're there, don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss our new episodes. Thanks for listening.